come from MMEX and talk about Pecos County Refinery Project and one of the most exciting things coming up in a long time with our new resurgence of oil and natural gas. And it's really great to have you here, and I appreciate you taking the time to come here and visit with us.
Thanks, Greg, and I want to thank the Southwest Energy Summit for inviting us to be here today. I thought I'd start out by giving you a presentation, an executive summary of the project, and a little bit about who we are, and then answer the questions you might have. So we'll get started. So this is the disclaimer language that basically MMEX, we are a development stage company, and we've been through our various affiliates involved in lots of energy projects, including oil and gas drilling, gas processing, gathering. We built electric power projects in Peru. We built fractionators. We own a refinery in Peru. So we've had a gamut from both the upstream and midstream type of assets. We formed MMEX back in September of 2010, and MMEX is affiliated with a company called Maple Resources Corporation. And Maple Resources Corporation is a company that I own and have developed projects, since 1987, so a number of years. And we operated out of Dallas, Texas for many, many years. At one time in the U.S., we were moving about 14 million cubic feet a day of natural gas. 175 million cubic feet of gas a day, and about 14,000 barrels a day of liquids. We bought the Cabot Corporation's gathering and processing systems in Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico, and that was a principal business of Maple. And then I sold all those assets in 1992 and went to Peru, and we obtained concessions in Peru in a gas field that had not been commercially developed yet, but had been proven. And we acquired a refinery in Peru, a small refinery. And then we developed that project. From there, it was a $275 million investment. And it was a natural gas field. We built gas processing facilities, gathering pipelines. We built a fractionator in Peru, and then we operated a refinery in Peru. And it's located in an area of eastern Peru called a town of Pucallpa. It's about 300,000 people. It's a small refinery. It's about a 4,000 barrel a day refinery. But it produces a full slate of gasoline, 87 and 90 octane, jet fuel, and some naphtha and diesel fuel. These are some pictures of the Agua Tia project that we built, and you can see on the left-hand side is the gas processing facilities. On the right top is the power project that we built. It was 175 megawatts, and the fractionator is on the left bottom side, and then the towers we built were all built by hand in over the Alto Plano, up to about 19,000 feet. So it was quite an industrial and engineering feat to do all this, and that was about 400 kilometers of transmission lines that were built. All of the equipment of that project were floated from Houston down the Amazon on ocean-going ships. You can go on ships all the way into Iquitos in Peru, and then we offloaded those ships onto barges, and then we Valley River to the site location, we rebuilt 50 bridges in order to transport two ABB turbines. They were a little over 50 megawatts each, very heavy, but it was quite an engineering feat. We built that project on time, on budget, $275 million in 18 months. On the right-hand side of this, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my screen, not yours. These are pictures of the Pucallpa refinery that Maple purchased in the early days, and again, it has about 200,000 barrels of storage facilities. It's a simple distillation unit, and as I say, it's a batch process that we utilize with. It's about 3,600 barrels a day of crude oil, which is really condensates in the jungle, and then it can go up to 4,000 barrels a day. So, our project. We had been looking in the port of Brownsville to build a refinery. And the concept originally was because of our experience in Latin America, and because we felt like the opportunity to export crude oil and products was coming along, that it really did present an opportunity to build a refinery in the United States. And I started looking in the port of Brownsville. Initially, it's a deep water port, has land availability, you've got railroad access, and with this proximity to Mexico and to the water, it looked like a great opportunity. As we began to look at it, I'm from Midland, Texas, and the Permian Basin has become the largest oil field in the world very quickly, a lot quicker than I think a lot of us thought. And it just began to dawn on me that, well, wait a minute, if the Permian Basin is the largest oil field in the world, then why don't we turn this project on its ear and go build a refinery in West Texas, and then figure out what to do with refined products. So that led me to really start looking. I had known about the Texas Pacifico Railroad and its interconnection at Presidio, and that railroad runs all the way to Topolobampo on the west coast of Mexico, and that seemed to be a great idea. And so as I began to drive down, really started in San Angelo and started driving all the way down to the Texas Pacifico rail line, I just came upon Fort Stockton and felt like that was really the right mix and feel of things. And so that really became sort of the focal point of efforts to obtain land there. I think that, as you can see from the slide, I mean, what's interesting about the new shale crude oil supply is that it just keeps getting lighter and lighter in its API gravity. And other refiners will not even take 45 plus API crude oil, won't even pick it up. And other refineries will discount the purchase price because most of the refineries have been built on the front end to burn heavier crude oils. And this whole shale revolution is changing the dynamics of the business. So there's a real advantage to building a state-of-the-art refinery that can utilize these much lighter crude oils. That is really the impetus and the thinking in the project. We acquired the land under a purchase and sale agreement, and that started in February of this year. It is really it has a closing date on it. We've been doing the surveys. We've just finished the surveys literally yesterday and received all that. There's some, we're acquiring 500 acres. The footprint of this refinery is 250 acres. So we have quite a bit of extra land and space, but we think we're going to want to use all of that in storage, and we're located, and I'll get back to some of the details, but we expect to close on the land and on the land purchase within the next week to 10 days. That has not been announced yet, but based on everything we're seeing, we ought to be able to get that done in the next days. We've engaged a public relations firm out of Austin and Houston and Dallas, Communications. We've selected our EPC contractor, KP Engineering, out of Tyler, Texas, and Houston, Texas. And our legal counsel is Hallett and Perrin, and we've been working with Bruce Hallett and his law firm for probably 10 plus years, and they're experts in acquisitions and mergers and the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have a very well-known strategic consultant and industry advisor, but under our confidentiality agreement with them, they don't allow us to use their name in a public forum like this, but they're well-known in the refinery business. They do a lot of the business planning and analysis, and as we get closer and closer to the financing side, they really kind of kick in with the business plans, and I'm sure at some point we can disclose who they are, but they just ask us not to do it in a public forum. We've retained Trinity Consultants, which are well-known in the refinery business. They represent most of the major refineries and a lot of the gas processing plants in terms of their permit application. They're really the focal point of us going to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and filing all the permits. We've signed a letter of intent with a well-known New York Stock Exchange midstream company that operates in the Permian Basin. And again, under the confidentiality agreement, we cannot disclose who they are in terms of the letter of intent, but they are well-known. We have an initial letter of intent with them for up to 50,000 barrels a day, in which they will gather the crude oil. MMEX also has we have a right to participate in gathering systems that we need to build them. The advantage of our location is we can get there by rail, by coming into the Texas Pacific Railroad. We can get there by truck because we're near highway. We're about 20 miles just north of Interstate 10, and there's also blacktop roads that get there. We have to build a hardtop easement into our property, but we've already met with the university lands, and they have a pretty standard process of a 10-year easement that can be extended each time. So we will also be putting together an easement to get in there. But we are looking to probably expand, and I'll get into that in a minute, but we think that, what I call a gating issue. A gate, in other words, it's not about the crude oil supply. There is more than 50,000 barrels a day for us there, and so we're contemplating increasing the capacity of the refinery from 50 to 100,000 barrels a day. That has not been a final decision, but we're contemplating. Okay, well, today we are announcing that we are going to go on parallel tracks. And this is one project, but we have a phase 1 and a phase 2. We've made a public announcement this morning that we are going to start with a 10,000 barrel a day, what we call a CDU, which is a crude distillation unit. It is much like the pictures of the Peru refinery that I showed you previously. It's a distillation column that produces naphtha, it produces diesel, and it produces what we call atmospheric tower bottles. All of those are utilized as a feedstock into other refineries, and two different methodologies that is used in the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. One is on a case-by-case basis, and that it takes you 12 to 18 months, and that is where the large-scale refinery would go into that type of a process. So that's permitting takes 12 to 18 months. Whereas a 10,000 barrel CDU unit can be done in 45 days. And we met with the Texas Commission last week, and it's very clear to us that, I mean, they're very pro-business, by the way. So, I mean, this is not like you might imagine that they say, no, we can't. We don't want you to do business in Texas. They're very, very positive. They want to help you. And this can be done by rulemaking. And with rulemaking, that's why you can get through the 45-day period quickly, and it doesn't take the longest time. So we're going to be on a dual track. We can get into the 10,000 barrel a day. The construction time is approximately 15 months once we get the permits. It's about a 45-day process when we file the permits. I would say it will take us 60 days to get the permitting ready to file with TCEQ. And they were very confident that we could get through that process in 45 days. That's what we'll be doing on one track, and then on the other track, we are doing all of the permitting work to get to the file for the large-scale refinery. And again, we have to make a decision pretty quickly of whether that's going to be 50,000, 75, or up to 100,000 barrels a day. It's not about the crude supply. It's not about the financing. It's all about the permitting time and structure. We're quite excited about that. And I must say, the market is also, you know, the big unknown. No problem with crude supply. We'll get a permit. There's no doubt about it. However, you know, I'm talking about the large-scale refinery. However long how much time it takes is the question. And then financing's not an issue. It's going to be, okay, well, where are you going to sell all your product? And we've been spending a lot of time here in the last months really trying to bring that into focus. And it comes about that, you know, we're going to talk about the Texas Pacific Railroad in a minute and come back to that. And but the good news is that there are some pipelines in our area that go to El Paso and on around El Paso into the Phoenix market, and the Phoenix market could be a very good market for gasoline and diesel. And then we can send our naphtha and our atmospheric tower bottoms. There's a new pipeline coming out of Corpus Christi, and that can it's a crude line which will go from the Permian Basin to Corpus Christi. We can put, and we've already spoken, this is the Magellan pipeline, and there could be an opportunity for us to batch our naphthas, our ATBs into that pipeline to go to the Corpus refineries, which can utilize those products. They're used as blending stock, so that would be a good market. Now, as you know, and let me get to this point, this is our location in Fort Stockton, and if you look down at the blocks with the green and the yellow with the circle on it is our square on it is our land. That's 500 acres, and the Texas Pacific Railroad cuts through the northeast corner of that, and that, of course, we're north of Fort Stockton. So as you go there, then I'll bring you back to the route there. But that's our land. We're 20 miles northeast of Fort Stockton. There is a lot more land available out there, but 500 is a lot, and it's plenty of space for storage of what we want to do. The 10,000 barrel a day refinery and the 100,000 barrel a day refinery will fit easily within the 500 acres. chose this location because it presented the Texas Pacifico Railroad, which is called the South Orient Railroad in Texas. It is owned by TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, and they're under a long-term lease with MMEX, which is a subsidiary of Grupo Mexico. It presents a very interesting opportunity because the railroad runs from San Angelo to Presidio. Now, the bridge at Presidio has burned twice and many years ago, and it has not been rebuilt, but it is now contemplated for reconstruction. The financing is in place. It's about a $10 million investment. Grupo Mexico is putting it up. They've got the Mexican side permits, and now the United States, we keep hearing that within the next days, the next 10 days, should have the permits done to rebuild the bridge. The construction time for that would look to us to be probably sometime early 2018, first quarter of 2018. But again, we're 15 months plus out, so there's plenty of time. Now, there's good news and bad news. Some of the good news is you've got great access into western Mexico, but there needs to be some refurbishment of that line. TxDOT has put out a study in 2014 that says it needs a $150 million investment. Now, TxDOT and Grupo Mexico are willing to do that if they can see that the traffic will support that. There's not a lot of traffic business going from Fort Stockton to Presidio today. They've been hauling a great deal of the pipe that went into the Trans-Pecos pipeline, so it was a good piece of business because they were all the way down to Presidio. But one of the things that we will do, we met with Texas Pacifico yesterday, is we are setting up meetings to go meet with Grupo Mexico and Ferromex in Mexico City and start discussing, what kind of guarantees do we need to put up in order to provide enough comfort and business that this refurbishment financing can be put together to refurbish the rail. You have to understand, with the kind of volumes we're talking about, we're talking almost a unit train, which is 100 cars, and that would so that's a lot of weight, and that's a lot of traffic, but it's also a lot of business that everybody would be very excited about. And if that rail has been reconstructed, then part of it, the business can come the other way. This all goes into Chihuahua State, Chihuahua City, and as you can see, what this next slide does, it gives you some mileages of where we are compared to going, southwest through Mexico, and also back up to Dallas-Fort Worth and down into Corpus and to those ports. We have learned that with the 10,000 barrel a day refinery, those products could easily be put onto the Texas Pacifico Railroad and taken east through Dallas-Fort Worth on down into Houston and the Corpus Christi refineries. And that's without any refurbishment. So this could be a very, very interesting opportunity to get us started with our 10,000 barrel a day refinery. It's a great location. I mean, you can go east because the Texas Pacifico Railroad interconnects to the Union Pacific. It interconnects into the Burlington Northern, and then the Union Pacific goes all the way down into Houston and Corpus and those areas. So readily, we could be taking our product in the 10,000 barrel a day refinery into the Texas Gulf refineries and giving them some blending stock. On the other hand, Mexico has just deregulated within the last year its distribution of products. Today, the United States, out of the Texas Gulf refineries, are exporting 500,000 barrels a day of product into Mexico. I mean, it's just quite phenomenal. So there is huge opportunity in Mexico, but honestly, no one quite understands the market yet. And one of the things we're doing is we're trying to meet and research the Western Mexico market, because there are no refineries in Western Mexico. Everything that's distributed in Western Mexico is brought from the East Coast refineries in the Veracruz area by ship or barge, or truck all the way across. So you have some very important areas of Mexico. The copper mines are over on the West Coast, and they use a lot of diesel. The trains use a lot of diesel. And so that's a ready market. But I just, you know, in full disclosure, we don't know everything about the Mexico market yet. And that's one of the key goals of our business plan, is to understand it. Perhaps we, you know, find a Mexican partner that can help in distribution, because it's all deregulated. It's no longer just PMEX. So you know, that's an exciting part. The good news about our project that we like a lot is we've got optionality. We can go by pipeline, we can go by rail, and we can go by truck. We can utilize the first 10,000 barrels a day first, and then as we build into the bigger project, then you know, we think some of these markets will have developed substantially within the next 2.5 to 3 years, by the time we get up to 50 or 100,000 barrels a day. So, in conclusion, we are excited about fast-tracking on a parallel pathway the 10,000 barrel a day refinery with the 15 to 100,000 barrel a day full-scale refinery. We know the South American market very well. Peru imports 160,000 barrels a day of crude oil and products. That's what excited me originally about Topolobampo. We can get to the Mexican West Coast, which we can do Ferromex. It's a ready export market going down the Pacific side, Central America, Peru, in that area. We believe in the discussions that we've had with various financial entities that financing is available. Permits are the gating issue for financing. So everyone is telling us that we love your project, we think it's great. Tell us when you get the permits. So that's also driving us to go for an earlier permitting stage, so we can move this along in a parallel track. I'm highly confident that the financing is not a problem. It's just moving the pieces forward to get there. Now, a 50,000 barrel a day refinery is a $450 million investment. The 100,000 barrel a day refinery is an $875 million CapEx investment. The 10,000 barrel a day refinery, the crude oil distillation unit, is approximately a $47 to $50 million investment. But we have had a lot of experience in project financing. This is project financing 101. And you've got to have the crude supply, you've got to have an offtake agreement, and you've got to have an EPC contractor that guarantees the construction and completion risk. If you have that, there's a lot of available funds in this world to finance this kind of a project. These kinds of projects, like a refinery, 50, 75 years of cash flow. So it's a steady stream of cash flow if you have those elements together. So I'm highly confident that we can find the financing once we get the permits in place. So the challenge for us is now, between now and time we get permits, hence, let's get there quickly as we can on an early stage, parallel path with a smaller unit that we can get in 45 days, build out in 15 months, and then as we work along the 100,000 barrel a day permitting stage, which is probably 12 to 18 months, and then another 18 months on top of that for construction. Plenty of feedstock in the Permian Basin. It's just astounding what's come along in the last 2 years in the investment that is coming into the Permian Basin for net acreage, so there's a lot of movement and a lot of money, so this refinery makes a lot of sense to be right in the middle of this. We've got a great administration for Pro Energy. I mean, I've never seen it as good as this. So now's the time. You know, we've got great specialists and people that we've retained. We've spent many, many years in project development. This is gonna get done. I mean, it's just gonna get done. And so, that's really, you know, we've got a great area. The Pecos County is very encouraging. Everybody wants employment, business. I mean, the tax base that we're gonna create for Pecos County is enormous. So, you know, we're very excited about it. So, anyway, we've got a lot to do. We've done a lot since February, but we're charging ahead. And we are a public company. And it's difficult because we can't tell everybody all the time everything that's going on at once, because it's you know, we know what we're doing, but we just can't tell every move that we're making because you can't do it under SEC regulations. And I know our investor base is frustrated from time to time that we're not coming out and having this kind of a discourse every week, but we just can't do that. But we're learning, and we're trying to be more responsive to our investor base. We're changing our website. We've got new things going on there, and we're trying to communicate a lot. So with that, thank you for letting us present, and I'm happy to entertain and answer any questions you might have.
Is it helpful in the larger project to do a small project and get the permit so that observers can see that you're gonna get permitted? Is that helpful?
I don't want to say it's proof of concept, but it kind of is. I mean, proof of concept sounds like you don't think it's going to, the bigger, but that's not true.
Right.
But it makes things happen, and particularly, I think, with Texas Pacifico and Ferromex.
Yes.
If they see us in the ground and see us with products, and we're saying, well, wait a minute, we're gonna ship on you through, we'll ship on you to Corpus or Houston, then they're gonna start thinking, well, let's enhance the road to Presidio.
Right.
So, yes, in many ways, Greg, I think that's what we've been thinking.
It separates your physical activity from talk.
Right.
We see that in a lot of our energy
I know,
sectors.
I know.
There's a lot of people proposing huge solar projects out there.
Right.
They do a 10 megawatt somewhere, which you can do quickly under the permit.
Yep.
Then people are planning 1,000 and 500 out before Stockton. Well, someone would say, would you do our project because you've done one?
Right.
And on refineries and so on, to get refineries done, and sometimes everybody wants to jump to the big project, but as you say, it takes years to do the process.
No one has done a refinery in 40 years.
Right.
And so whenever we started this out, they go, well, wait a minute, why isn't BP, Exxon, Shell,
Exactly.
Valero, I mean, the whole list, why aren't they doing it? And so you just say, well, first of all, they don't want to go through the brain damage to do it, and the environmental problems,
Yes.
and they need to build 100 or 200,000 barrel refinery.
Right.
We don't have to build the 100, but we're going to.
Right.
We started out at 50, and look, we think there's enough oil supply
Yes.
to go to 100,
Right.
and we think the market's there. But starting out at 10,000 on a parallel path to do both, it I think moves the needle greatly in all respects.
Right.
I do.
Other questions?
Yes, sir.
The education, economic incentives from the state or others, I assume, sound like everything's going well in Fort Stockton. So of the economic development factors, has that been something you've taken advantage of? Was it not important?
We've met a lot with Doug May, who's been the economic, he's been the executive director of the economic development, and Doug is, I think, well, he is retiring, but he's staying on as a consultant, but he's been very helpful, and I've met with the board, there are tax incentives, which are available. They, there's other pocket, I mean, there are, you know, bond funds and things you can do, through the economic development, or the county. But you know what, we haven't really approached it yet. I mean, our project is not dependent upon the tax incentives. Some projects are, and we understand it. In other words, you want to say, okay, we'll go build, you know, a widget factory if we could get tax abatement for X year, for school tax abatement. But we're not dependent on that. This project is so big and is so, I'd say, robust in terms of its economic cash flows that we don't need it. Now, sure, I mean, everything would help, but financing is not going to say, well, wait a minute, until you get a tax abatement, we're not going to finance $875 million. What they're saying is, we'll finance $875 million, just want to see you have the permits, right? But if bells and whistles can come with it, it's sure, you know. But we want to be a great citizen of Pecos County. You know, we want to pay school taxes. I mean, and our project is going to go forward whether or not we get some sort of forgiveness or abatement or something of that sort.
And sometimes those become more of a distraction, going
Yeah.
through those processes.
Yeah.
You're over here, deal with the county commission and the other groups to get that incentive,
Yeah.
which I'd say you didn't need it anyway in your case, so you just distracted yourself when it could have been over here doing a focus or talking to Mexico, what you need to do.
There's bonding authority out of, you know, that we've been approached on a very high level about, you know, at some, you know, port facilities and, you know, Presidio. But our view of this can come, you know. We want to focus on the business plan, we want to focus on permitting and crude supply, offtake agreements, and then these things might come later on. There's no
Right,
law.
the CDO's working on this bridge, they're working, you've got
Yeah.
people working on the railroad. If the state would deal with the railroad and the bridge,
Yeah.
because it needs to be done, and you not have to personally,
Right.
you're kind of handling
That would help.
that. But you said to give them momentum
Right.
in the section you create, they create.
I think everyone is waiting to say, well, you know, are you really gonna do this? And how much business can you bring, on the track, you know, on the road?
Right.
And I think we can prove that up, and I think money will get done. So, but I don't think going in, we can just be dependent on that one option of going to Mexico. I mean, I think that's a mistake. I think we need to have multiple options of our market, which I think that's what we're trying to do now.
Right.
So whether it's Corpus Christi refineries, whether it's Phoenix, whether it's Houston, we have access.
Chihuahua City.
Chihuahua City, carry on. But it's there. And I think that the Permian Basin's an ideal location, you know, even if we weren't on the railroad.
Right.
It's ideal.
It just gives you an additional opportunity
Yeah.
that most people don't see.
Right.
It's been 100 years since people focused on the Orient Railroad, and they had the vision that you've got. And you can see it again, the same way the state invested some for Stangelow, you get a factory upgrading part of the train.
Right. And there's a whole lot of discussion about more traffic coming up from Mexico
Right.
this way.
Yes.
Which it should.
Right.
If the track is available and is maintained, then you should have a lot of business out of Chihuahua and western Mexico.
Pacific, right?
Yeah.
So this is a functioning railroad as we speak?
Yes.
With the exception of this bridge?
No, it's functioning because they haul the Trans-Pecos gas pipeline down all the way to Presidio. It's functioning. The problem is they slow down to about 10 miles an hour, and they've never transported the kind of weight that we're talking about on that road. And if you can go on the road and see very quickly it needs maintenance. But there is a report, public information on the TxDOT website for Texas Pacifico that says we need to spend $150 million south of San Angelo. I'm sorry, south of Fort Stockton. There's another cost to do some work there.
Because the rail itself is not,
Yeah.
bound to handle the weight in which.
That's correct.
Because it was good to Coleman, and it's like a 4-hour train travel,
Right.
Coleman to San Angelo,
Yeah.
it was so bad.
Yeah.
Then they upgraded that to move wing towers, with the Portuguese San Angelo company, to strengthen it to San Angelo, but now the next step is to Fort Stockton, then Presidio, and then back into Mexico. Because it's been around since 1909. The Kansas City, Mexico, and Oregon from Sweetwater to Topolobampo. The high school band used to go to Topolobampo when you could just cross the border on that route, and then it became you stop at the border.
And remember, the bridge has been out for how
Yes.
many years,
Right.
20, 30, 40 years?
Right.
And so that's just, so there's been no cross-border traffic. Couldn't do it. And that's been a real hindrance to business.
Presidio's doing a lot of upgrades for their
Yeah.
international bridge, or international port,
Yeah.
inland port, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of players hovering around, and you're basically the catalyst to get a lot of this in a full gear.
So you think there's enough capacity with here and in Eagle Ford to not only feed you guys with your 100,000 barrels a day, but also if you guys are shipping fuel that way, why couldn't you also ship the sweeter crude over to the Mexican refineries that are more adapted to
Exactly.
to correct?
I think we could become a crude oil exporter.
Yeah.
And that's always been my plan.
Yeah.
But, how much do you want to talk about at once, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, sir.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Particularly if we could facilitate the upgrade of the railroad, then there's no reason not to export crude along with refined products.
Right.
So it's absolutely a great idea. And one I've thought about, because now you can export crude oil,
That's right.
you know?
The stuff we've been sitting on for several years over here, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. All right. Well, Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you.